In Creo Parametric, you can create 2D production drawings. In these videos, we're going to take a look at the entire process, starting with your part assembly models, and then initiating the drawing, then placing your drawing views, adding your details, and then publishing your drawing. Here I have an assembly model open, and we can leverage a lot of the information from our models in our drawings. For example, if I go to this icon, I can take a look at my saved views, and I could use one of my saved views in a drawing view. Also, as you can see on the screen, I have an explode state in my assembly, and I can use that in the drawing as well. Let me click on one of the parts and then use the open icon from the mini toolbar in order to open it in its own separate window. There are a bunch of things from part models that you can use. For example, let me go to one of my features. I will left click on it and then use edit dimensions from the mini toolbar to show you the feature dimensions. I can use these different feature dimensions on my drawing. Some other things that you might want to leverage. Let me go to one of my combination states. Here you can see that I have a 3D annotation for a geometric tolerance in one of my set datums. And another thing that we can leverage, maybe you have cross sections from your models and you can use those in different drawing views. Let me also use the mini toolbar in order to display the cross hatching for this cross section. So now that I've got my model set up, I can initiate my drawing. And since Creo Parametric has associativity, when you create your parts and assemblies, you can start off your drawings as well, especially if you're using a product data management system or a product lifecycle management system. Speaking of which, let's take a moment to thank today's sponsor.
This video is brought to you by Arena, a PTC business. Arena is the proven market leader in cloud product lifecycle management with over 1,300 customers worldwide. They're focused on helping manufacturers move away from spreadsheets and other manual disconnected systems to accelerate innovation. By bringing together bills of material and the entire product record in a single system, Arena PLM enables internal teams, suppliers, and contract manufacturers to collaborate in real time on the latest designs and reduce engineering change order cycle times. With increased visibility into design changes, quality issues, and supply chain disruptions, everyone stays aligned throughout the new product development process. This eliminates build errors, scrap, and rework to help you release products on time and under budget. Learn more at www.arenasolutions.com/manufacturing and see how Arena can help speed product releases with one connected system. Now back to our video.
Now I'm ready to start off my drawing. I like to switch over to the window for the model that I'm going to start my drawing for. Let me hit the New button, and I'm going to change the type in the new dialog box from the default part to drawing. And then we have our file name. I'm going to call this my engine assembly. And you can write in a common name. Then there's this option here for use default template. I'm going to uncheck that because I want to show you the different methods for starting off a drawing. There's also this option here where the drawing model can use the file name of whatever the default model is used for the drawing. Let me show you what that means. I'm going to click on the OK button, and then this is going to open up a dialog box. Here is the default model. It's whatever window that you have active whenever you hit the File New button. And in this case, if I had checked that option for using the same name as the model, it would have used the name engine.drw. Drawings end in .drw. Just in case I wanted to use a different default model, I could use the Browse button in order to navigate to a different part or assembly to use in the drawing. Now we have the section where it says Specify Template. The default option here is empty. In other words, you're just going to specify the sheet orientation and the sheet size. You won't even have a border around the sheet for your different zones or any kinds of tables or title blocks. Then there's this option here to use a template. And I have a few different templates set up. A drawing template uses a drawing format, plus it typically adds other information like automatically placing some different drawing views on your sheet. But I usually use empty with format. And right now it has none listed in here. If I click on the browse button, it's going to go to a folder on my computer specified by the Pro Format DIR configuration option that has all my different drawing formats. And here I have a variety of different ones. I'm going to use my C size format, and then I will choose the open button. You'll notice that we don't have any other additional controls for the orientation or for the size because the format is going to determine the orientation and the size of the drawing sheet. So everything is good in here. Let's click the OK button. And now it's asking me if I want to start off by using a certain simplified representation. The default here is master. I am happy with that. Let's choose the open button. And then it asks me which sheet of format do I want to use, either sheet 1 or sheet 2. My drawing format happens to have two different sheets. I'm going to use sheet 1. And then it's asking me for information to fill out the different tables on the drawing. So for example, it wants to know who drew this. Let me put in my name and then hit the enter key. And then there's some other different tables that are looking for parameters. In this case, these are some from my PLM system. I'm just going to hit the enter key to bypass those because I'm not currently connected to my PLM system. So now my drawing is started off. You can see that I have my zones around the sheet. It also has a revision block in the upper right hand corner. And then in the lower right hand corner, I've got my title block where a bunch of information was automatically filled in for me, such as the name of the object. Here's where I entered in my name. Here's today's date and so on. So that's good for the very first sheet. Now I'm ready to place some different drawing views on here. Before I do that though, I want to show something to you. If you go to the File command and then Prepare and Drawing Properties, this will open up a dialog box where you could specify your tolerancing standard and the tolerancing standard version. If you wanted to use a different standard or version, you can use the blue change hyperlinks over on the right hand side. But up at the very top, we have this detail options choice. If I click on the change button, it's going to open up a dialog box with all the different options that you can control for how the different details are going to look on your drawing. So for example, in the first group, these options control text, not subject to other options. Then we have some for controlling views and their orientations. I'm going to collapse a few just because I know from experience that the fifth group of options are for ones pertaining to dimensions. And so we have a whole bunch of different options in here, like for our chamfers and for cleaning up our different dimensions. And I'll show you some of the functionality that is alluded to here later on. But I just want you to make you aware that you do have the ability to change the different options for your drawing details. Let me close out of this dialog box and then close out of that one. Now we're ready to start off with some drawing views. And the first view that you start off with is a general view. You'll notice that it is one of the only icons available for creating drawing views. The other ones are grayed out because you have to start off with a general view. Once you have a general view, you can create other different views based off of that general view. So one way to create a general view is by clicking on the icon in the toolbar. Then you get this dialog box about selecting a combined state. When I was in the part model, I clicked on one of the tabs at the bottom of the screen to go to a combination state. You can set up your combination states in advance and then have those different combination states displayed on the screen. But I'm not going to use a combined state. I don't have one set up. And so now I'm being prompted in the lower left-hand corner of the screen to select a center point for the drawing view. Also, the tooltip on my icon is giving me the same exact information. And I'm going to click here in the upper right because I just want a sort of isometric view showing up in there. And here for setting the orientation of the drawing view, by default, it is prompting me to select one of the views from the model. So I'll double click on the view that I want to use, and I'm just going to zoom in and zoom out real quick in order to update that particular view. And right now it's using a very small scale. If you take a look in the drawing view dialog box, on the left-hand side, we have a whole bunch of different categories of the options that we can change for our drawing views. I will click on scale, and here is the default scale that was picked for this particular model. Kind of a weird number. I'm going to change this to a custom scale, and you can type in a value, like I can try 0.25 and hit the apply button to see how that looks. And I decide, yeah, for my ISO view, 0.25, that is not bad at all. And I like everything else about this view. Let me just show you some of the options. I'm going to create a whole bunch of other different drawing views, and I'll go to these options later on. If I go to the view display, here's where you can change the style. Right now I'm set for no hidden line, but you could change to wireframe, hidden, shading, or in this particular situation, I want shading with edges. Let me hit the apply button, and that looks pretty good. Looks like I'm getting one of my offset lines in here. So now I'm happy with this particular drawing view. Let me click on the OK button, and then right now lock view movement is selected. I can select that and then move this over here to where I want it to appear. So that is good for that first one. And I also want a drawing view of the exploded assembly. So let me create another general view on here. I will right mouse click and hold, and then from the pop-up menu, here I have the general view command. And once again, I will do no combined state. You do have the ability to check this box so that you won't get this dialog box asking you every time that you create a new drawing view, hey, do you want to select a combined state? I'm going to click the OK button out of there. And once again, I'm going to select the center point for the drawing view. I will choose my drawing view that I want to use. And then for this one, let me go to the scale, and I want this to be a bigger scale. Let's use like a value of 0.375, and I'll hit the apply button to see how big that looks. Might be a little too big. Maybe I'll change it in a moment. Now I'll go to the view states category. Here's where I can choose to explode this particular assembly view. And from the drop-down list, these are the different explode states that come from my model. I'm going to choose the one that I want to use and then use the apply button. And there it places it on there. And that's pretty good. Looks like I'm going to have to move some of my views around. Be aware that you can customize the explode state in here if it isn't exactly the way that you want it to be on the drawing. You can have the explode state modified from what is defined in the model. So that is good. Let's click the OK button. I'm going to click on this view and just move it a little bit more out of the way. And so for sheet 1, this is pretty good to begin with. I can always make other different modifications later on. Here I have the little scale note. I can grab it and reposition it where I want it to be. So this is pretty good for sheet 1. Now I want to make some drawing views of the engine block. And so the first thing I'm going to do before I create a brand new sheet is I'm going to add that particular model to the drawing and make sure it is the active model. If you take a look at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, it tells us that the active model is called engine and it is of the type assembly. Here we have the default scale. You can actually double click on the scale and change that if you want your default scale to be something more normal than that oddball suggestion I was getting there. But anyhow, I have my first sheet done. I want to add in my other model. So the way that you do that is by going to the Drawing Models command over in the ribbon. I'm going to choose to add a model. And for the model that I'm going to add here, like I said, I want the engine block. So that's the model that I want to use. Let me click on the Open button. And then I can click Done Return in order to close the menu manager. If you take a look down at the bottom left-hand corner, it automatically made the engine block the active model. It says type part, name engine block, so it changed it from the engine assembly. Now I can create a brand new sheet. There are a few ways of doing that. One way is by using the New Sheet command in the Layout tab, and it automatically used sheet 2 of my format. Now I can start placing my different general views on here. So let me go to the General View button. I'll click OK to get out of the Select Combined State. Then I'll left click right about in the middle where I want the view to appear. And I think for this particular one, I'm going to use the saved view called Top. Once again, I'm going to zoom in and zoom out quickly in order to update the screen. Let me go to the scale. And it's now using my default sheet scale of 0.25. I am happy with that. Everything looks great about this particular view, so I will click on the OK button. And with the view still selected, now you can see that I have options for other different kinds of views available to me. So for example, I could create a projection view. If I move my mouse out to the right-hand side of the parent view, I would get a right view. Here I would get a left view, and if I moved over here, I would end up getting a top view. Let's create that one. That's good. Now I'm going to select the parent view again, and from the mini toolbar, this icon allows me to create a projection view. So let me create a projection view over here. That's good. Let me select the parent view, create a projection view, and I'll create the projection view out over here to the left. So I'm happy with these different projected views. You'll notice that this view over here is still selected. So that way, if I hold down the right mouse button, I can get to the icon that is used for edit definition in parts and assemblies. In the drawing, it is called Properties. Let me click on that. And here I have the Drawing View Properties dialog. Once again, here I have the view name. I'm going to rename this. I'm going to call this the Engine Block Left View. I like to rename the views so that they appear in a way that I can understand them in the drawing tree. And now I'm going to go to the Sections category. Right now it's using No Section. I'll click on the radio button for 2D section, and then I can use the plus sign to grab one of my cross sections from the model. You'll notice that the A cross section has a red X next to it. That means that it would be inappropriate to use that particular cross section in this view. That cross section is not parallel to the screen. So let me choose view B. You can also choose how much of the section that you're using, full, half, or local. There's some other different options that are grayed out for full unfold and full aligned. Those are for other different kinds of cross sections that you create. But let's try the apply button. Now I can see that I have cross section BB there. I like that. So let's click the OK button. And now I'm going to grab this little section node and I'm going to reposition it where I want it to appear. So I'm happy with these. Maybe I want to throw in one little ISO view. I can right mouse click and hold and throw in general view, click the OK button, click where I want the view to appear, grab one of my saved views, and let me go to the scale. And I'm going to use a slightly smaller scale for this ISO view. And let's go to the view display. Oops. It warns me, hey, other categories cannot be accessed without applying the changes. Do you want to apply the changes? Yes, I do. And so now I'm on view display, and maybe I want this one to be shading with edges. I'll just click the OK button and maybe reposition it a little bit. Grab the little note and reposition that one as well. All right, that is good for the second sheet. I'm going to create another sheet, and this one is going to be for the cylinder head. So once again, let me go to the drawing models, and I will choose Add Model, and let me find the cylinder head part. I'll select it, then choose Open, and I'm going to use the master representation of that particular part. Turns out that the part has a custom part level simplified rep. Let me choose the Open button, and now it is the active model. Let me go to the plus sign down here. This is another way of creating an additional sheet. Now I am on sheet 3. The reason I created another sheet is that I want to show you an alternative way of setting up a general view. I will right mouse click and hold and choose General View, and I'll choose OK out of the Combined State dialog box. Let's select the center point for the drawing view, and instead of using a predefined view from the model, another option is to use geometry references. Now if I zoom in and zoom out real quick, it's going to end up showing the datum planes from the model. I can use either datum planes, or I could use surfaces from the model for setting up the view. Here we have a drop-down list where we could choose the front, back, top, bottom, left, or right of the drawing sheet, or we could define something as the vertical axis or the horizontal axis. To face the front of the screen, I'm going to use the datum plane called top, and then to face the top of the screen, I'm going to grab this datum plane, and it reorients it on the computer screen. And yeah, it looks like a pretty good scale. Let me just verify that. Okay, it's using a sheet scale of 0.5 for this one, so slightly bigger scale. I am fine with that. Let me click on the OK button. Actually, let me change this to custom scale. I just want to make sure that it labels the scale that we're going to use for this particular view. Then I'll click OK out of here. And with that view selected, I will right mouse click and hold and go to create a projection view. I'll create a projection view on this side. Let's create one more projection view to the top. So that looks good for that one. I'm going to hop back over to sheet 2. There's one other kind of view that I want to create on here, and that is going to be a detailed view. And so to create a detailed view, here we have the icon in the Layout tab. If you go to your right mouse button menu, you can also create a detail view. And the first few times that you create a detail view, I strongly recommend that you pay attention to the prompts on the computer screen. So I will choose the command, and now in the bottom left-hand corner, it's prompting me to select a center point for the detail on an existing view. And so I will click on the geometry right about here, and now I'm being prompted to sketch a spline without intersecting other splines to define the outline. So I'm going to use a bunch of left mouse clicks, and then I can use the middle mouse button in order to close it off. You can see that we have the note for C detail A, but now I'm being prompted in the lower left-hand corner of the screen to select a center point for the drawing view. So let me pick right about over here to place that particular view. And this view has its own scale. By default, it is going to have a scale that is twice as big as the parent view. Once again, I can grab the note for the particular view and move it where I want to appear. So in that way, I have started my drawing. I've added multiple models. I've added multiple sheets, and I've created multiple different views of my part. So that is a good way for having the drawing started off. In the next video, I'll begin detailing this drawing, starting off with my dimensions.